And welcome to this week's podcast. That's not a podcast. This week's Facebook Live. Before we start, we're going to talk about fear. We're going to talk about decisions. We're going to talk about how to move past fear and how it's preventing you from realizing results, both in business, but this applies to every other area of your life. This applies to relationships. This applies to why you don't work out in the morning or eat properly or whatever it is. Fear comes up in almost every facet of life. Before I go into that, I'd like to encourage you guys to stay tuned. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be presenting a webinar. I'm going to make reference to a webinar, and I'll put it in a description here on my Facebook page, so my business page. So if you are curious about kind of taking your business to the next level, if you want to learn and grow a lot more, I'm going to be offering a webinar to help out with some of those things. Stay tuned for that. And also, as always, please, if anything comes across here that you're like, hey, this is really important, other people need to hear this or pay attention to this, please like this. Please share this with your friends or people in a certain group that you've got. That helps me, and I'm very, very grateful for it. So really quickly, I'm going to go through this. I've talked before about soft skills. What is a soft skill? A soft skill is something that we don't typically learn in school. So hard skills are the things we learn in school. Math, sciences, language often we don't, and those things prepare us often for being an employee. So hard skills often help us with employment on some level. They can be things as simple as, hey, technical skills, running computers, whatever it is. But typically it's what we learn in school. Soft skills are things that we don't typically learn in school. They're things that if we don't learn from our parents, we typically don't learn at all. And in the average person in our society never grows in these areas, never learns these things unless they can get outside of themselves and pick it up from somebody else. Now, I didn't grow up with all the soft skills I needed for business. I'm going to give you some examples here. Communication, negotiation, influencing people, motivating yourself, getting past procrastination, setting goals. All these are kinds of things that schools don't really teach us very much, and yet we need them every day in our daily life. And there's that's a problem in our society right now, because there are so many people moving towards small businesses, so many people venturing out and trying their hand at business, and so many people are unprepared. Marketing, I would say, can be both a hard skill and a soft skill, but it includes lots of soft skills. Influence is a soft skill again. So it's really important to understand putting yourself in other person's shoe. That's a soft skill. Getting another person's perspective, encouraging yourself, maintaining a fantastic attitude and optimism. Those are all soft skills. Today, what I'm going to talk about is a soft skill that is really difficult for a lot of people, and that is getting past fear, taking action rather than being stopped by your fear. And I want to explain fear for a little bit. Excuse my psychobabble, because I'm going to go back to my psychological training in neuropsychology to kind of help you understand what fear is in my understanding, and then we'll move past that and go, how do we utilize this? Now, number one, this is what I believe. Evolutionarily, there's been a long time where humans have been rewarded by being fearful. I'm going to repeat that. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans have been rewarded by being fearful and reacting to that fear very, very quickly. I'll give you an example. If there was a saber-toothed tiger or some dangerous animal 100,000 years ago, the Mark ancestors that survived were the Mark ancestors that feared very quickly. They had a very strong reaction, and they acted on it quickly. Now, we often call this the fight or flight response. Well, this was rewarded. It was rewarded through survival. The Mark ancestors that survived were the ones who reacted quickly and took action, either ran away or fought the animal, whatever it was, and they stayed safe. The Marks that were really curious and went, they were really analytical and thought through things, very logical, and went, no, let's not make any rash decisions. Let's think through this process. Let's think. And this is, by the way, this is a very interesting tiger. How many stripes does it have? How long are the stripes? How long are the teeth? And started measuring those. Those were the Mark ancestors that died. So my ancestors, as yours, were the ones that reacted to fear quickly. Now, the way that works in our brains, and it's called your limbic system. If you want to do more research on this, LIMBIC, limbic system. But if basically what this happens in our brains is that we've got a very, very quick response. What happens in our brains is that there are basically three parts, okay, in this limbic system. Oh, there's lots, but for our purposes today, there's one part that simply takes in whatever information is coming in and makes a quick judgment of where to categorize this. So for example, this person is raising their voice, or this person might be angry with me, conflict might be coming, let's put this in the category of conflict. And there's a second part of this part of our brains that says, what is the emotion attached to conflict? And so it attaches an emotion, fear. And then there's a third part of our brain, this part of our brain, that says, what do we do with fear? And the third part says we run and scream and run around in circles, or we fight, we lash out, we defend ourselves, we hide, we become silent, we sweat a lot and simply hope that no one notices us. Whatever our reaction is, that's basically how it happens in our brain. And legitimately, we've got three places in our brain. If you want more information on this, feel free to contact me, okay? Reach out and I'll explain it in further detail. I just don't think everyone thinks this is interesting like I do. But there's three parts, okay? The first part categorizes, the second part attaches an emotion, the third part reacts to whatever that emotion is that has kept us safe in the past, okay? Now, how do we categorize something? How do you categorize something? Well, you categorize something based on past categories. So we don't typically create a lot of new categories. We've got to work hard as humans to create new categories. So typically we just think, oh, all conflict is the same. But is that true? When you are negotiating a business contract, when you are asking somebody to put down a payment for the value of the service or product that you have, that's different type of conflict than, I don't know, your parents screaming at you when you're young, or having family problems or friend problems, or I don't know, a conflict with your dog at home. There are different types of conflict. So if our brains aren't clearly delineating and separating these different categories, we simply throw them all in the box of conflict, then we're always going to react the same way, and we're always going to have the same actions. We're always going to procrastinate. We're always going to get into these funks that we get into, and we're not going to take the action we need to take. So I'm going to ask you this. How is fear getting in your way? Is fear preventing you from better relationships? Because listen, relationships is another bunch of soft skills that we learn. Listening, active listening, all these things are soft skills that we need to learn that will better our lives. And they won't only better our personal lives, they better our business lives. If you're good in relationships at home or with friends, you're going to be better in dealing with people in a work atmosphere. Whether that's employees, whether that is business partners, or even customers or clients. So we need these skills. How is it preventing you? How much money are you losing? How much money are you leaving on the table because you're afraid of money, or afraid of sales, or afraid of calling somebody and marketing yourself, or talking about your business? How afraid are you of negotiation, and how does that prevent you? Here's what I'm going to suggest, and there are some basic fears that most people struggle with in business. One would be kind of my own value, fear that I'm worth what's going on. Another common fear that I hear about with small business owners is fear of money, fear of sales, fear of marketing, fear of putting myself out there. There's fear of hiring. There's fear of taking your foot off the gas. There's fear of working too hard. There's fear of lots and lots of different things. I've heard a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not even going to attempt it here. I'm just going to paraphrase it. Basically, what this person said was, your fears become your boundaries. Your fears become your boundaries. What that means is that however far out your fears are, that's the limit of what you will, of your farmland in life. It's the limits of where you can travel, is your fear. And this is what happens with fear, with most people. Fear encloses upon us, okay? As time goes by, we fear more things. That's typical for a lot of people. I know a lady, I met her a few years ago, and she said that she was functioning really well when she was in her 20s and 30s, and that slowly over time she feared more and more, and she started to enclose on herself. And finally, when I talked with her, she was living in her house and wasn't even leaving her house anymore. This was back when I was a therapist. But legitimately, fear kind of encroaches upon us, okay? Well, we need to constantly push back the boundaries of fear. And we can do this in really easy ways. It's not actually all that difficult. So many people think, oh, well, if you're afraid of heights, the first thing you need to do is skydive. That's not true. There are people who can do that. And if you are one of those people, fantastic. But if you're one of those people, you're probably not listening to this Facebook Live anymore, right? What I'd encourage you to do is take one step in the direction of your fear to push back the boundaries of your fear. What that is like is let's pretend that you've got this this plot of land. And there's a rainforest all around you, and it grows fast and it encroaches upon your land. And what your job is to do as the farmer, and this is like the same as like being a farmer of your own mind, and growing the crops that you want to grow in your own mind, is always push back the boundaries. Always push back the boundaries. In North America, when the old settlers came on, they would take out a new piece of land, and then First Nations peoples did this, and other people did this, and they would push back the boundaries. They would dig out the trees. They would push back the boundaries so that they had land that they could utilize. And if you want land that you can utilize in your mind, what you need to do is push back the boundaries. So just do a little bit all the time. Instead of taking that huge step in skydiving, what you can do is do something today that pushes you a little bit. If you fear trying new things, then the next time you go to a restaurant, try something new on the menu. That's a pretty simple thing. Once you get used to that, what it does is it retrains our brains to work at pushing those boundaries. It trains us to think, oh, wait a second, this is not dangerous. New things are not dangerous. Now, let's talk about more practically about procrastination. What are most people's reactions to procrastination? Most people, when they procrastinate, I was talking to somebody about this just yesterday. Most people, when they procrastinate, they are hiding from something that they want or need to do. As an example, they watch TV. Maybe they've spent time on social media. Maybe you're doing that right now. You're procrastinating from something else you need to do. People utilize addictive type substances, so like sugar, alcohol. There are things that many people in our society rely on to kind of hide away from the fear. Netflix, that's a huge one for people. And what I want to encourage you to do right now is to not only push yourself, not only push the boundaries and grow yourself a little bit, because that's common knowledge. That's what a lot of people talk about. I also want to really encourage you today to make decisions based on our goals rather than our current circumstances. What do I mean by that? I'm going to give you an example. Let's say, I'll use my own example. Okay, so my own story. When I was getting into business, I was actually getting into real estate investing. And at that time, I didn't have the skills I needed to invest in real estate at a high level. I wanted to build a portfolio. I went to a conference, a weekend seminar, and I came across this speaker who was phenomenal. He was just this man of integrity who had a ton of values. He had the kind of family life that I wanted for myself. He interacted with people. He had a bunch of soft skills that I wanted for myself, and I recognized some of these things and went, listen, if I want to grow, this is the kind of person I need to hang out with. Well, he was offering a coaching program. This coaching program was really expensive for me at the time. I was working on a master's degree. I was working on all these other things. My family, I was working 2 or 3 part-time jobs at the time. It was different times where I worked 2 or 3. And I realized there was just this light bulb moment that went off in my head that said, Mark, if you don't do something about this, if you don't spend time with people like this, you are never going to reach your goals in the time that you want to reach them. You might reach them at some point in the future. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to reach my goals much faster. Not immediately, but much faster. And this guy was charging, well, for the program that I was going to purchase, it was over $13,000. Well, $13,000 was not money that I had right then. I was using student loans to help my family survive at that point in time, okay? Well, I was faced with a choice, and the choice was, do I go forward with something that I don't even know if I can do? Do I allow fear, do I allow my current circumstances to determine my actions, or do I have goals and I'm going to allow my goals to determine my current actions? So this is what I did, and this is said over and over. I'm sure you've heard this before, maybe not, but most people have heard this before, that instead of saying you can't, you need to ask, how can I? Is a phrase that Robert Kiyosaki kind of made famous. Instead of saying I can't, ask how can I? And so that's what I did. I took that advice and asked, how can I do this? How can I make sure I pay $13,000? How can I gain this person's coaching expertise? So I went back to my wife. I talked with her. she was terrified of this as well. She was going, Mark, we can't do this. And I said, oh, I know we can't. So how can we? How can we find a way? And we made a decision based on our goals rather than our present circumstances. We ended up finding out a way that we could kind of spread out payments with this coach. And we ended up taking this coaching program. I did, and I ended up making far more money in the next few months based on this guy's coaching program than I even owed for the program. So I ended up paying for the program within the next few months, based on his training, and purchased real estate and sold some real estate and did some other things. What's the lesson of this story? Well, if you fast forward, this man has become my best friend. This first mentor or coach that I had. He's become an incredible friend. We've done business deals together. We've made tens and tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars together. And all of this has come from me making a decision based on my goals rather than my circumstances. So much of the time we get bogged down in thinking, I can't do that right now. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the money. Those are typically the resources that people talk about. I don't have the time, the energy, or the money. And here's what I want to challenge you to do. If you want to bust through fear, if you want to take the next level in business, and this is going to affect your relationships, this is going to affect a lot of other areas of life. What I want you to focus on are your goals. Now, the problem is most people haven't even looked at their goals. Most people haven't even thought through their goals. And actually, you know what? I'm going to talk about this probably in another few weeks. I'm going to bring up goals again because it's worth talking about consistently. First of all, set goals. And have goals that matter to you, not that matter to somebody else. Don't write down the goals that somebody else thinks you should have. Don't write down a fast car because other people around you like fast cars. Write down what you want. And most of the time when you write down what you want, it's not going to be simply material possessions. There'll be some material possessions. Most of the time, it's going to include a lot of other things, like the lifestyle you want to live, the time freedom that you want to have, the kinds of things you do with your time. It's going to have the relationships that you want in life. It's going to have the influence you have in life. Those are the things that matter most to most people when we get down a little bit deeper. So set some of those goals. What do you want your life to look like? Set some of those goals. And then ask yourself, what actions do I need to take to get there by the time I want to get there? Whether it's a 2-year goal or 5-year goal or 15-year goal. I've had 30-year goals in the past that I'm working towards. I've only got 9 years left to hit one of them, but I'm well on my way. When you set those goals, ask yourself, what do I need? What are the skills that I need? What are the actions I need to take? What is the plan that needs to be in place in order to reach these goals? And always base the decisions you're making today on those goals. If you've got a timeline that you want to speed up, guess what? You're going to probably need some help. And that's okay. If your goals are long in the distance, you don't want to hit any goals, you want to make $5 by the time you're 95, that's fine. I'm not judging people here. But if you want to speed up your goals, you're going to need to do things like I've done. And you're going to need to make a decision, not based on fear of your circumstances, based on your goals of what you want. And you know what? We've got great examples of this in life. We've got lots of people, Oprah Winfrey and Elon Musk and Henry Ford, and lots of people who have done things based on their goals rather than their present circumstances that made a significant difference in this world, that changed the world. Now, they changed the world in different ways, but I mean, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, there are lots of people on this planet that based their decisions, based their actions, not on what they wanted right now, not on what they believed was possible right now, but what they wanted for the future. And those people are the ones that made a significant difference. If you want to have and I'm not talking about how you don't have to be Martin Luther King Jr. to change the world. You don't have to be Elon Musk or whatever to make a significant change in how the world thinks, whether it's technology or human rights or whatever that is. You can make a difference in your business this year. So it's the beginning of October 2019. You can make a difference over the next 2.5 months and start to see great results for 2020 if you're willing to take action now. And that's what I'm going to encourage you to do. I want to look over just to make sure there's anything else that I wanted to cover here. No, that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to make it another really quick, I'm going to set another plug-in for decisions and how it affects fears. And that is, you need to make, so this limbic system, this primal brain, the simple brain that I talked about that makes decisions very quickly and has saved us so much in the past. And we don't have a lot of lions and tigers and bears, oh my, running around. every day now. So we don't have as much use for that brain anymore in 21st century society in North America. What I'd suggest is that you pre-make your decisions, have pre-made decisions. What I mean by that is ask yourself what's coming up this week. It requires some pre-planning. Ask yourself what's coming up this week, what's coming up this month, what's coming up this year. Okay, so again, this is focusing on your goals. And then ask yourself, what are some actions I need to take? What do I need to change? And I'm going to give a different example here. I'm going to use, for instance, like chocolate cake. If your goal is to hit a certain weight or to be healthy in a certain way, and you believe that chocolate cake is getting in the way of that, then you need to pre-make a decision that when the next holiday season comes up, you're not going to eat all the sweets, because you know sweets don't work towards your goals. And when you pre-make these goals or pre-make these decisions based on your goals rather than your circumstances. So again, rather than going, well, I want cake right now, so I'll eat cake, and be super impulsive, if we can just set that aside and say, no, last month I made the decision at this holiday event, I'm not going to eat the chocolate cake. I'm not going to eat the sugar. I'm not going to whatever it is. When we pre-make those decisions and we keep accountable with people, we've got to surround ourselves with beautiful people. When we do that, we're far more likely to succeed. Why? Because then instead of making the decision based in the moment, based on fear or based on desire, based on these simple emotions that are not bad, but sometimes get in the way of our goals, we've already made that decision. Bring people along with us. And by the way, I'm going to talk about this thing that I talked about at the beginning of the video. If you want more information on this, I'm going to be putting on a webinar that talks about the skills needed, the basic things you need to grow your business that I've seen get in the way of most people. And one of those things is surrounding yourself with the right people. One of those things is surrounding yourself by the right people. So that doesn't mean divorce your family. What that does mean for most people is that you need to maybe change some of your friendships. And that doesn't mean, again, divorcing friends. It means finding new friends, finding people that understand you, that get you, that understand business, and that are willing to say, that's a crazy idea, I love it, rather than, well, that's a different idea. I'm not sure how comfortable I feel because I work for the government or I am an employee and I don't understand how that helps. That's outside of my frame of reference. Surround yourself with people who understand you and who are going to encourage you. That can be a coach, that can be a small group, it can be something that you pay for or something that's free. But surround yourself with people that are like-minded. Most of the time in my life, what I found is I need to pay something for it in time, energy, money. And I'm happy to do that because it's made a massive difference in my life. What I'd like you to do is maybe share in the comment section here, or send a comment to me regarding what your fears are. What are some of the fears you experience in business? And based on that, I'll send you some ideas on how you can work on those fears. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of fears as I've been a coach for quite a few years. So feel free to comment, feel free to put that in there. I will interact with you, and enjoy the rest of your week.